that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Finnell. I'm George Harvey. This is Tom Finnell. And I explain this every week, so I'm sorry that I bore you so much. But I do an energy blog, which is called geoharvey.wordpress.com. And I spend 3 hours roughly every morning going through the news, doing web searches, and the stuff that I come up with I find interesting. I put at the blog a little synopsis for each news article and a link to it. And of course I'm exposed to a lot of news, so I put it all together, and Tom finds pictures, and we get together on Thursday mornings and chat about it in front of a camera, and that's where this show comes from. So are we ready to go, Tom?
We're ready to go.
We're ready to go. Friday, January 2nd, in 2000, wind farms composed just 116 megawatts of capacity in Texas' main electric grid. That number has since soared from 116 to 11,000, while wind fuels about 10% of all generation in Texas. And there's a note here that says on average 1 megawatt hour of wind energy can power 260 typical Texas homes for an hour.
And they're big.
Those houses are very big. They use a lot of air conditioning.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So, you know, this is from the Midland Reporter Telegram. And did you have something on that? I see.
Well, it's up there.
Picture of
it's up there, yeah.
Somebody
That's
at a wind
Manny
turbine.
Dominguez. And he's the facility manager of one of the wind farms, and he's checking a lightning rod. He's standing up there on top of a turbine.
Yeah. That is a job that I'm just as glad not to have. Anyway.
This story is interesting because Rick Perry is the just to be about 2 weeks ago ex-governor of Texas.
Right.
And he is a very rock-ribbed conservative,
Yes.
Tea Party kind of guy.
Yes.
But yet he put in place all of this renewable energy stuff.
Yeah.
Which has him in trouble with his constituency.
Well, some of the constituency. You know, it's funny because I've seen that Tea Party candidates in Florida are getting very strident about getting solar power into Florida, which is way behind in solar.
Some of them are starting to realize that they're benefiting.
Right, and the Tea Party in the Atlanta, Georgia Tea Party has a woman whose name I've forgotten, but she has been traveling all over the United States trying to get people to adopt solar power and renewables in general. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that renewable power, particularly solar, but also wind, if the political condition is correct, is very democratic. People can take advantage of their own, you know, they can take control of their own destinies, if you will, dealing with.
Well, yeah, that's very self-empowering.
It's self-empowering, and in the European paradigm, their communities are putting together wind turbines. So you have a community wind turbine or a community wind farm, and everybody benefits from that. The money from the utilities stays in the local community, provides for local jobs, provides for security for the communities, and there are a lot of examples of that. Actually, there are examples in the United States too.
Well, Texas is uniquely situated because they've got a lot of wind and a lot of solar.
They have a lot of wind and a lot of
solar. And they've exploited a lot of that wind. It's
Yep. Enough wind power in Texas that if it was all brought to bear, it would provide enough electric power for the country.
I mean, we've talked about exactly that. We've talked about exactly that.
Yep.
There's a lot of power out there. It's just and ultimately it will all be harnessed.
No.
Well, all of it that's practical.
All that we have to do, we're going to do, I think. But
it's going to take a while.
There's so much more power out there than we need that it, you know,
I wouldn't be surprised if we
Huge.
didn't figure out something to do with the extra power.
Well, you know, what they're saying, and this comes from the DOE, is that there's enough wind of capacity available in Vermont that if we developed it all, we would be able to get 135% of the
I've read
power
that
we
too.
need.
It ain't going to happen. But
No, it's not going to happen. But it
theoretical.
would only use 2% of the land for wind farms, and only 2% of the wind farms would be used for wind turbines. So this is not this is not covering the countryside. At the same time, if we developed all our
You
solar,
mean there's not going to be a wind turbine on the top of every hill?
no.
I heard exactly that. Oh
Well-
yeah, there's going to be wind turbines everywhere in Vermont.
Everywhere in Vermont. There's enough solar capacity in Vermont that can be developed to cover us with about 1,000% of the power that we need. So
1,000%.
1,000%.
Wow.
So if we developed our solar and our wind and a little bit of biomass and
Some hydro.
some hydro and installed, you know, efficiency and things like that, we could provide for our heat, we could provide for our electric power, we could provide for our transportation, we could get everything and have lots left over.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah. Next, Economic Times gave us this story. Indian Prime Minister Modi wants companies from China, Japan, Germany, and the United States to lead investments of $100 billion over 7 years to boost the country's solar energy capacity by 33 times to 100,000 megawatts. A top official in the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy said.
Well, this guy Modi is bringing India into the 21st century.
Yep.
I mean, they started very low. Outside of the cities, there's no power anywhere in India. A little diesel generator here and another diesel generator there.
And a lot of diesel generators because
And this guy's putting these things up all over the place.
Yep.
And some of these solar panel parks are huge. We've talked about them. We've seen some
unbelievably
pictures.
huge. Unbelievably huge. Biggest things in the world, I think. Do we want to go on from there?
Yeah, we want to go on. I was just looking.
This
I don't
next
think
one
I
is-
have any figures on the size of some of these parks.
This next one is kind of exciting. This comes from Clean Technica. The Kulan, or maybe it's the Kulan, is an electric-powered farm utility vehicle named after a Central Asian type of donkey. It has two 2-kilowatt motors in the back wheels, and there's a lithium-ion battery sitting between them. The range is 186 miles. The top speed is 31 miles per hour, and it can carry a ton of cargo.
I could see how that could be pretty darn useful in a small farm.
I think it could be pretty darn useful in a lot of places. I mean,
It's
just think about
interesting.
that. That could be a delivery vehicle for you know.
Well, at first I thought this was developed down in Central Asia.
Yeah.
It's not. It came out of Germany.
It came from Germany, right?
And I can just see, just from looking at this platform is going to be used for a lot of things.
Yes.
And
Delivering pizza.
delivering pizza.
Tons of pizza.
That would work in Brattleboro.
It would.
That would work in Brattleboro
Actually,
for exactly that purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
So I bring a couple more pictures up because I really like this thing. I think this is neat.
This is a neat thing. Now, the motors are tied directly to the rear wheels, which means
The motors are in the rear wheels.
There's
yeah.
no differential.
Nope.
And I don't know what it may be that they're just allowing one of them to clearly they're out of phase with each other, so they don't have
I think they'll take care of themselves.
they'll take care of themselves,
yeah.
and so this is a very simple vehicle in a lot of respects.
You know what's
And,
interesting? Back in something like 1911, Ferdinand Porsche developed a four-wheel drive all-electric vehicle
Yes,
with the motors in the wheels.
yes. And it seems to me that they found one of those things in a
Did
barn.
they really? Oh
Yeah,
boy.
I think they found his first vehicle in a barn about 2 or 3 years
Worth
ago.
a few pennies.
Man, well, it was not in very good shape, but nevertheless,
Still worth a few pennies.
still worth a few pennies. It's in a museum. Okay. Also from Clean Technica, on Saturday, January 3rd, we have this: construction of the world's largest tidal stream turbine power plant. Looks like it's set to begin next month in Scotland. The project's majority owners, Australian-founded Atlantis Resources, say they had met all requirements for funding through the UK's Renewable Energy Investment Fund. So, good luck
A lot
to
of
them.
good things energy-wise are happening in
Oh, yeah.
Scotland. They got some
Well,
people there with their thinking caps
Yeah,
on.
they do. And, you know, it's funny because when you look at the history of inventions,
Yeah,
the number of them that has come out of Scotland is amazing.
it is, huh? Yeah.
You know, I mean, the United States has got the #1 position so far. It'll probably be taken over by India and China if we let things continue going the way they
I think
are.
that's a given.
But the Scots, for, you know, on a per capita basis, I think they've blown away everybody else in terms of records on inventions, and now they're back in business on renewable
Well, this
power.
thing is something that's been obvious for a long time, but nobody's done it yet. And they've been talking. We've talked about several tidal basins that they're going to develop.
Yep.
And the very last sentence in this article talks about, where is it? Atlantis, the same company, is also working on tidal energy projects off the coast of Canada.
Yeah, not surprising.
And that's going to be the Bay of Fundy,
Okay.
which borders on Maine. So,
Yep. Okay, our next item from SNP, I have no idea what that is, says that now...
oh, the Scottish National Party, that's a political party.
Right, you're right. That's what it is. Analysis by the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, Scotland, found that last year wind turbines provided enough energy to supply all electric needs for 98% of Scottish households. Maybe I'm wrong about what WWF means. That is 2.36 World Wildlife Fund.
Federation.
Yeah, okay.
Not the World Wrestling Federation.
I didn't think so. 2.36 million homes, wind turbines generated enough power to supply over 100% of all Scottish households on 25 of the 31 days in December. They're getting a lot of wind
They're getting a lot of wind. Yeah, they're getting a...
You know, I mean, here's a country that's basically kind of windswept.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
So,
by the way, if you see there's a map of Scotland up there.
Yeah.
If you look at the upper right-hand corner
Right.
of the map of Scotland,
Yep.
that's where that tidal project is going.
oh, okay, fine, good.
It can't get further north and further east in Scotland than that.
There you go. Okay. Our next item from Macro Insider, Excel Energy says it wants to far more than double the amount of electricity it gets from wind and solar in the upper Midwest. The business, which serves 1.2 million ratepayers in Minnesota, has the most wind power of any U.S. utility and plans for a 40% reduction in emissions by 2030.
I was reading this article. It's kind of controversial because this wind and solar that they're putting in is going to offset some coal burning plants.
Yes.
But they're not going to dismantle them. They're going to keep them there and run them every once in a while.
Well, you know.
So that's, they made
working
their
on it.
decision. I'm sure they had their reasons, but they've come under, how would you say, criticism for doing that by the environmental people.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Everybody's going to come under criticism sooner or later. That's a given. Even me. And our next piece, which is from ReNews, a coalition of U.S. governors is calling on President Obama to implement a series of crucial changes to the country's wind power policies. Among their goals are a multi-year extension of the renewable energy production and investment tax credits and expansion of transmission line development.
Yeah.
They want these
both
governors
good
want
projects.
This, yeah, they want to do this because they're increasing their energy security, because they're decreasing the price of energy, because they're extending their tax bases. This is something that's good for the states.
Oh, it is. Oh, it is. Yeah.
Although some states are kicking and screaming, and those are states that have very powerful, politically powerful energy companies in them.
Yeah, well, some of these energy companies are quite powerful.
Yeah.
The Southern Company operates in about 5 or 6 states, and it's very powerful.
Which company is
The
that?
Southern.
Yeah.
They operate electricity under different names. They don't operate under the Southern Company, but they own about a dozen utilities.
Yeah.
They're a big outfit.
Entergy is a big outfit. Exelon is a big outfit.
Well, Southern's bigger than all of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to be talking about Exelon a little bit later on.
Yeah, we will. It's interesting that these governors, they're not all Democrats.
No, they're not.
It's a kind of evenly balanced mix.
Yeah, there was something that
From
happened.
red states to blue states.
Right.
Just keep falling off.
There was, yeah, folks. If you stop hearing Tom, it's because he lost his microphone. One of the things that I was astonished by, Tom, was that was a vote on hydro that took place a week or so ago in the U.S. House of Representatives. And we'd had James Perkins on with Little Green Hydro, and he talked about how hard it was to get these things going. That micro hydro bill that went through the House of Representatives was voted on and passed to make things easier for small hydro plants to be developed. And guess what the vote was?
I couldn't
It was
begin.
unanimous.
Unanimous, huh?
It was unanimous.
Well, it's a logical thing.
It's a logical
There's
thing.
a lot of
Republicans
people
and
with little
Democrats.
streams
Yeah.
going through their backyard.
That's right.
They can put one of these things in without
Yep.
really interfering with the stream at all.
That's right. And there's no fish in the stream, so
By the way, it's appropriate because we're talking about the government here. Obama has just announced that he will veto the
Keystone XL.
Keystone XL
Yeah.
pipeline, which is coming to a vote like immediately. It's going to be, I think,
Yeah.
the first item on the Republicans' agenda.
Well, the Republicans have been talking about making it the first item.
Oh, yeah.
So
there's going to be a fight because they're going to try to overcome the veto, and
Yep.
they
And
might be able to. And
They might. I don't think they will. So we'll just have
So
to see what
it's
happens.
going to be
on
it's
that.
going to be interesting.
And then, of course, the next president, if he happens to be a Republican, is going to be very likely facing the same thing. But I think the time for the Keystone XL may be passing.
Well, I think you're right. If the price of oil stays low, it's already affected investment
Right.
in the tar sands,
Yep.
among other things. But
Yep.
it's already invested. I just read in one of the things you had that two projects that were proposed have been abandoned
Yes.
because of the uncertainty. That's
Well,
the
we
word
had,
they used.
We had a thing last August, and it was one of our 20 top stories of 2014 that said that 127 of the largest oil and gas companies in the world were running out of cash, and
Yeah, we
to
did.
a tune
right.
of $1 billion a day.
Yeah.
And
That's not good business.
It's not good business. That was before the price of oil crashed.
Yeah.
And the price of oil went below $50 a barrel.
Yeah, it's
And
below.
they're-
It's in the 40s now.
Yeah, and they're saying that it
low
could
can
go
you
down
go?
to, yeah, right. They're saying it can go down to 30.
I've seen
Of course,
20. I'm not. I,
think
don't
I've
think it's
seen
going to happen,
5.
but I've seen it.
I think I've seen 5. I'm
Have
an
you
old
seen
timer.
5? Yeah.
Huh?
You've seen 5.
Well, I think when I was a kid it was 5.
No, I mean in this current discussion, I've seen people propose or prognosticate.
Oh, you're saying
It's going to go
prognosticating
down
20.
to 20.
Well,
and then it's going to go back up again.
yeah, and that's the thing. I think it's going to go up, and it's going to go up fast, and it's going to go up hard, and it's going to go up to record levels, and we're going to have the economy just jerked around by the price of oil.
I wouldn't bet against that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a roller coaster ride.
Yep. So the next item that we've got is on Sunday, January 4th. New figures from the U.S. Energy Information Administration suggest that for the fastest growing parts of the country, electricity is gaining share as the heating fuel of choice. In the future, that electricity for heating could increasingly come from renewable sources such as wind and solar. This is from the Energy Collective. And of course, what they're talking about there is heat pumps.
Yep. Solar, or what do they call them? Air source heat
Air
pumps.
source mini splits, they're called. I don't know why.
Have progressed to the point where they work in cold climates.
Yes.
And this is changing things
Yes.
tremendously.
10 below zero. They will go down to
Yeah.
10 below zero. But they say if you're going to have one of these things in, have
a backup.
Backup. And the best backup is probably cordwood.
If you got that, but I mean, if
Yeah.
a lot of these homes they're retrofitting an oil burner, they're saying leave it in place.
Yes. Right.
So for the 2 weeks of the year you might need it, you're going to want it.
Yeah. Or one of the reasons why I say wood stove is good is because the electricity can go out. And I've been
Yeah.
You know, I lived on a mountaintop in New Hampshire. The electricity went out. It was out for 10 days, and
Wow.
it was like sub-zero weather during those 10 days. And you know, we were happy that we had wood stoves. We were happy that we had spring-fed, gravity-fed water.
Yeah.
So we had our plumbing. We didn't have hot water for showers,
Yeah.
but we had heat, and we had water. And during the daytime, I ran a generator until it drove me crazy.
She had lights for a while.
I've drooled ever since. The noise of those things is awful. We should get away from that. Sorry, folks.
This is an interesting graph here. I'll pull the graph.
Oh, okay. Let's look at the graph. What's the graph say?
Well, this is by region.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's talking about the heating fuel of choice.
Right.
And it's interesting that that natural gas is biggest in 3 of the 4 regions.
Yeah.
But electricity, which is basically heat pumps, is certainly not resistance heat.
Well, I don't know about that.
Not what's gaining.
Yeah. You know, last winter I got a lot of heat from resistance heaters because it was cheaper to do that than to spend money on propane.
Yeah, but that's unique to you.
No, it's not unique to me.
You don't think?
Because my propane price was very, very high. But the break-even point around here is about $3.35 a gallon for propane. If the cost of propane goes much above that, you're saving money on electricity resistance.
I never did the math, but I'll take
Yeah.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah, I did, and then I got a little calculator from a place in Keene where I should bring that in and show it to people.
Yeah, it's a little show and tell there.
Little show and tell. Okay, next item from Clean Technica. The city of La Paz, Mexico will be powered 100% by solar energy. It already has 39 megawatts of solar PVs, and another solar plant is being built with battery storage. It will have 97,000 solar panels on 44 acres, costing $80 million, with a 30 megawatt capacity, and the battery will have 11 megawatts of output.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
This is interesting. There's a nice picture of it. It's a pretty town.
Yeah.
It's in the Baja Peninsula.
Okay.
And I think, I could be corrected here, I think Jesse Ventura lives there.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, my son went down for a vacation in the Baja that lasted about 6 weeks a number of years ago, and he said it's a great place. They have
I believe it is.
They have tacos that are filled with fish. He said that's all you could get was fish tacos.
Fish tacos.
And, you know, other Mexican food that was based around fish. Chicken was kind of unusual, and beef was unheard of. Okay, The Independent says this. This is an opinion piece from The Independent.
It's a British newspaper.
Nuclear power is the greenest option, says top scientists. That's the title. In an open letter, more than 65 biologists. I want to point out that these are biologists here.
Uh-huh.
They're not nuclear engineers. They're not power engineers, more to the point, including a former UK government's chief scientist, support a call to build more nuclear power plants as a central part of the global strategy to protect wildlife and the environment. These people are biologists, and it's very much like Jim Hansen and the climatologists and so forth. They're not experts on energy, but they're telling the experts on energy how to make power. And I think that is a mistake.
Well, they've got a point to a point.
Yes,
they've got
they
a
do.
point to a point.
I will
and
agree
that
with
point
that.
is that if you look at it just from an ecological standpoint, they're right.
Yeah.
But you have to disregard the disadvantages of nuclear power
Right.
and completely forget about them.
Yes.
And if you look at the emissions characteristics, it's wonderful. There aren't any.
Well, there's no emissions except for spent fuel that nobody's noticed what to do with.
Well, that's one of,
And of course,
these things that they're not talking about.
Tom, you and I know what to do with it because Steve Rucroft told us what to do.
And the other
On
thing
an earlier
that they
show.
should, that I think they just touched on it, but there are developments in nuclear energy that are far more appropriate,
But this is,
but they're not being utilized.
yeah. And the thing that the nuclear people keep coming back to is small modular reactors.
That's not the answer.
I know that. The first of them to come online is going to be 2022. That's 8 years away. The second one is years after that. We can't bring these things on fast enough to make a difference.
They were supposed to make one a week.
Yeah, well, if they make one a week, it's still going to take
But it's
too
still old
long.
technology. It's submarine technology.
Yeah, but it's still going to take too long for
Yeah,
them to get these things.
it's not the answer.
It's not the answer. And furthermore, the levelized cost of electricity from nuclear is about 3 times what it is for wind, even unsubsidized.
That's correct.
And
That's correct.
we know what to do with the spent fuel from the wind and solar. And when you have an excessive amount of when you have a power excursion from a solar farm, it's called a sunny day. And with nuclear, it costs money to run the plant. It may be cheaper than coal, but it costs money to run the plant. The marginal cost of solar is almost zero. So it's just not going to work on an economic basis, I think.
This is a puff piece, and there's a lot of assumptions here that they're not talking about. But I just read the last paragraph, which indicates where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Nuclear power, being the most compact and energy dense of sources, I guess it is, could also make a major and perhaps leading contribution. And this is where they're kind of playing with words. It's what they're saying is true, but it is irrelevant. A golf ball sized lump of uranium would supply the lifetime energy needs of a typical person, equivalent to 5 tanker trucks of natural gas, 800 elephant-sized bags of coal, or a renewable battery as tall as 16 super skyscraper buildings placed one on top of the other. A little bit of hyperbole there. And for one thing, they don't know a bit about what's going on in batteries.
No, that's true.
They must have been thinking about car batteries, stacking them.
Yeah, it might be.
Our main goal was to show through careful, objective scientific analysis
Objective, remember that word.
that on a basis of cost, safety, emissions reduction, land use, and pollution, nuclear power must be considered in the future energy mix. Well, in the future energy mix, there might be a room for it.
Well,
Particularly with some of the proposals that the future holds.
yeah, we'll have to see how it develops, but I just don't.
But
think,
it's kind
I
of
think
funny
these
because
guys are
I'm
way off
reading this
base.
and I'm saying puff piece, puff piece, puff
Yes,
piece.
right. Okay. The Monday, January 5th, we got this from Business Green. The UK's grid operator confirmed wind power generation rose 15% during 2014 from 24.5 terawatt hours to 28.1 terawatt hours, enough to supply the needs of more than 6.7 million households in the UK. Overall, grid-connected wind power met 9.3% of the UK's electricity demand during 2014, up from 7.8% in 2013. You know, it's remarkable how fast these things can grow. It really
moving
is.
fast
It's
there.
just amazing.
They're up to enough electricity to power 25% of Britain's households.
Yeah, and a lot of it's in Scotland.
Well, yeah, the political climate, for one thing, is better in Scotland.
It is.
We got people fighting onshore wind in England.
Yes. And in
And-
Vermont.
Huh?
And in
Oh,
Vermont.
definitely in Vermont, yeah.
Yep.
But it's interesting to see what's happening there.
Yeah.
This stuff is making progress steadily.
Yes.
And that's basically what's happening.
Yep.
Eventually, they're going to take over.
Yep.
It's just a matter of when.
Okay. Financial Times brought this little piece to us. Norway is close to agreeing on a €2 billion investment to construct a 700-kilometer underwater power line that would allow the UK to import hydroelectric power as Britain attempts to solve its power crisis. A firm decision to build the line between the two countries would be made early this year.
Now, this staggers me.
Why?
Well, I used to be in the business. I worked for a company that made underwater power cables.
Right.
And at that time, 20 miles was like pushing the envelope.
Limit, yeah.
We were bidding for what they call the convex crossing between about Lyme, Connecticut to eastern Long Island.
Yes.
And that was about 20 odd miles. And we lost it. Pirelli got it. I remember my boss saying, after we had a kind of a wet lunch, right after the bids were announced, he said, the Italian joke is on us. Pirelli being an Italian company.
Right.
And at that time, Italian jokes were popular. But they have really tremendously made progress. I mean, the fact that they can make these things 500 miles long, that blows my mind.
Right. Right. But they can now.
They can. The only thing down about this, and I read into it, these are very expensive.
Yes.
They're very expensive on present day electricity usage. They can't be justified. So they're looking way into the future.
The British
here.
have got a problem. And the problem that they've got is that for the last 30 years, they've been doing practically nothing about improving their electric infrastructure.
Yeah.
So they're way behind the 8 ball. And that's why they're putting money into things like Hinkley Point, where they're talking about 2 reactors costing $20 billion each.
Which doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah. And taking years and years to construct. And the reactors that are being built of that design elsewhere are way behind schedule. It's, I really wonder about the wisdom of that. But
Another thing that's happening here is Norway has a tremendous amount of hydro.
it sure does.
And they've been selling that hydro all around Europe, which is fine,
Yes.
that's okay. But with the growth of renewables, a lot of their markets are shrinking.
Right.
So they're looking for new ways to export
Right.
their already surplus hydro.
Yes.
And that's what this is all about.
Well, the people in Iceland are doing the same thing. They're talking about building a possible submarine cable from Iceland to Scotland.
Well, if they can do 500 miles, they can do what is it?
Yeah.
1,500, 2,000?
I don't know.
Just splice it.
But I think one of the big points here is that transmission systems are very different today than they were 50 years ago.
These are DC,
Yeah.
high voltage,
High
very
voltage
little
DC.
loss,
Yeah.
very low loss.
Right. And a lot of this is because new kinds of equipment have been introduced in the last 30 years that make it possible to use high voltage DC.
Absolutely. That's just what I was thinking. 20, 30 years ago, couldn't do it.
Yeah. Okay. From January through October, renewables accounted for 13% of U.S. electric generation, up from 12% in 2013. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, only solar installations of 5 megawatts or more were counted. And
Yeah, they only counted the big guys.
the U.S. EIA only counts what they call utility scale, which is always 5 megawatts or more. And under that accounting system, there is no solar power in Vermont
Right,
at all.
exactly.
And now it says here, with smaller installations included, the figure is 13.7%.
I think it's much more than that.
Do you?
I think so.
I wouldn't disagree with you. I think that, it's hard to imagine that anybody really knows how much is involved here. We're starting to talk about, you know what it is? Solar power is to households relative to big utilities as automobiles were to households relative to mass transportation in the beginning of the 20th century.
That's a good analogy.
People can do it themselves. Why should they depend on the utilities? In those days, you could get yourself a Model A Ford and drive anywhere you wanted to go, and that was freeing. And today,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
What a concept.
Wow, yeah.
Let's go back to this a second here, because
Okay.
I got an interesting graph here.
Okay.
Now this is this is a snapshot of October.
Okay.
But it's kind of typical of what's been going on.
Yeah.
And there's still, as you can see by the graph, a lot of coal burning electricity being used.
Yes.
It's rapidly being overcome by natural gas, because natural gas is cheap.
Yep.
And on a different map, or a different chart I've seen, a picture of the growth or decline of coal and the growth of natural gas are like mirror images of each other.
Yes.
And they have been for
for quite a while.
quite a while. So,
And what's happening now, I think, is that renewables are getting to the point where they are starting to take a more and more significant chunk out of the whole thing. I mean, we're above 1/8 of the entire market right now.
well, looking at this graph,
Yeah.
we got a long ways to go.
We have a long ways
the
to go.
renewables are way down there in the bottom of the graph.
Yeah, but you know what?
But they're growing very rapidly.
Right, and I'm kind of expecting that in 2015, we're going to start seeing renewables together as a group exceeding natural gas in terms of new capacity being brought online.
Well, the thing about natural gas right now is its uncertainty.
Yes?
The quantity and price.
Yes.
Both uncertain right now.
That's right.
A lot of the predictions that they made about the availability of natural gas when they first started fracking aren't coming through.
Yes. And on top of everything else, those predictions fueled a conversion to natural gas in a number of places where it was inappropriate. And
That's one of the reasons why they're proposing all these pipelines.
well, they're proposing the pipelines, but also, you know, National Grid has said that they're increasing the price of electricity 37% in eastern Massachusetts, 25% in Rhode Island. I have read that one of the utilities, I don't know which one, in New Hampshire, is increasing its price of electricity 100%.
Wow.
And all of this is because of a lack of natural gas
in
infrastructure.
those areas, yeah.
The pipelines are just not big enough, so they want to build pipelines. But nobody wants to have a pipeline crossing his property.
By the time they get the pipelines built, there's not going to be any natural gas.
I know. It's a very tough situation.
It is.
And really what they should be doing, and we're going to be seeing some of this later on, what they should be doing is changing their attitudes towards some of the things that are going on, and we'll see that in a minute. I'll get to that.
Yeah, we got a few more things to talk about that are related to this.
Yeah. EDF, this is on Tuesday, January 6th, and it comes from EcoSeed. EDF Renewable Services, U.S. subsidiary of EDF Energy's Nouvelle. I don't know how to pronounce French. I'm kind of a
I
barbarian.
don't either, but
I have to-
EDF is Électricité de France.
Okay.
Okay, so it's partly owned by the French
Yes.
government. It's a very large utility.
It's a very big utility, and it operates worldwide, which is why we have a U.S. subsidiary. Expanding its portfolio of renewable energy projects in Canada by 52% in 2014 alone. Over the course of the year, the company signed contracts for 27 projects in Quebec and Ontario, representing 454 megawatts of wind and 134 megawatts of solar power. That's a lot of
That's a lot.
stuff.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Do we have any commentary or pictures on that?
Well, there's a picture of it. It's just the wing of
Of a wind
a
turbine?
wind turbine.
Yeah.
It came with the article, so
Okay.
it doesn't necessarily mean it is about the article, as we will see in the very next one.
Yeah. Exelon Corporation, and this comes from Tulsa World. It could have come from any of a number of papers or news places. Exelon Corporation, the biggest U.S. owner of nuclear reactors, estimates that it will need to charge 83% above wholesale prices to keep the Jinnah nuclear reactor plant running. That plant near Rochester, New York, recorded losses exceeding $100 million from 2011 to 2013. Jinnah is one of 10 nuclear plants considered uncompetitive. And by the way, Exelon is also asking the state of Illinois for
special deal.
subsidies for Quad Cities, Byron, and Clinton nuclear power plants. So, you know, the nuclear power industry guys, the people in favor, keep telling us, and of course they say, no, Price Anderson isn't support. That isn't, you know, the fact that the government is taking over the waste and paying us to store it is not
That's not a
subsidy. Now they're asking for subsidies. They're biting the bullet and saying, guys, we got to admit this is going to be a subsidy. We need a subsidy. Why do they need a subsidy? Because they're being driven out of business. And what are they being driven out of business by? Gas. And
Yep.
what is gas going to be driven out of business by? Solar and wind.
Renewables.
You know?
Here's what I just meant. Now, this is an article about Rochester, New York, which we've talked about before.
Right.
And there's a picture that came from the article,
Yes.
and that picture is not Rochester, New York.
What is it?
You recognize it? That's Yankee.
Ah, there you go.
That's
Okay.
Yankee, taken
Yes.
from New Hampshire.
Wow.
I looked at it, I said, boy, that looks an awful lot like Yankee.
Well, so do the plants in Fukushima, the reactors in Fukushima. Okay, if we can go on from there, this next one is kind of exciting. In his Monday inaugural address, California Governor Jerry Brown proposed an ambitious expansion of California's renewable energy goals from 1/3 by 2020 to 50% by 2030. The goal
that's
also,
a lot.
yeah,
That's very ambitious.
yes, also includes big increases in alternative fuels, building efficiency, and smart grid investments to put them into use.
I don't think it's mentioned here, but they're doing a lot with storage.
Yes, they are. The state of California is really interested in doing this, and I think part of
They
the
seem
reason
to know
is
what they're doing.
they are suffering from climate change.
Well, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
So
Much more than we're likely than is really being written about in the East.
in the East, yeah,
Yeah, they got the
Yeah.
droughts, you know,
They've
and then
got-
they got the storms. and-
they've got droughts and storms. The majority of the state is what's called extreme drought.
yeah, and the storm didn't help much. It
No.
just washed mud away.
It did help increase the water in the reservoirs, but that's about all. It caused mud to run around. It caused houses to collapse.
Well, get back to Jerry Brown. You know, his targets are very ambitious, but his advisors are saying they're difficult but achievable.
Yeah, we're going to get back. There's a story from Wednesday.
I think that's further down.
Yeah,
the
it
same
is.
same darn thing.
Yep. So on Wednesday, let's go to Wednesday, January 7th, we have this from Clean Technica. Prices for German solar power storage systems have reportedly fallen 25% since the spring. According to German Solar Industry Association, about 15,000 German households now use battery storage combined with solar power. The number has been growing faster and faster as the costs have come down. This is from Clean Technica.
And these are households. They're the ones we don't even count.
That's right. These are people who are actually, probably almost all of them are actually on grid. But
Yeah.
they're getting their batteries running, so they don't need the grid at all, really, ultimately, and they can unplug from it.
I'd say most of them are hanging on to it just in case.
Yeah.
Sort of pants and suspenders stuff,
And-
or belt and suspenders stuff.
Right, and what's happening here is that the cost of solar has gone down so much that it's cheaper than the cost of grid electricity, as you know. And of course, grid electricity in Germany
In
is
Germany
far
is
more
expensive,
expensive,
yeah.
and solar is far less expensive
Yeah.
than in the United States. But they're getting the battery systems in, and battery prices are going down fast
Well, what
all
this
over
article
the
said,
world.
they've fallen by 25%.
Right.
And that's only the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
They're going down. They're going to go down a lot less.
Right.
You know, we start talking about flow batteries.
Yeah.
They haven't even exploited that. You know,
Well,
it's such a brilliant idea.
yeah. These people that we were talking to from Green Mountain Power,
They didn't even know about it.
they didn't know about it, which I was
That's
a little
kinda scary.
No, I don't find it scary. Those guys have got so much to think about.
Yeah.
They can't think about everything, and we've been talking about something that they're unfamiliar with. That makes us feel kind of cool. But
Well, you got to admit, flow batteries they're an idea that's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But they haven't been practical.
yeah,
All of a sudden, they're not only practical, they're practical on a very scalable way.
yes,
These things can be huge.
they can be huge. That's right. And if you want to double the output, in terms of the megawatt hours,
Yeah.
you can just make your reservoirs larger.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You don't
And-
have to change anything but the pond.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
it's not in a pond. They're tanks.
They're tanks.
Yeah.
They're tanks. Solar power is growing in New York at 63% per year. And that figure is not just for 1 year, it's for the period of 2010 to 2013, according to a new report titled Star Power, the growing role of solar energy in New York. At this rate of growth, the state could be 20% powered by solar by 2025. And you know what?
That's not too far away.
It's not too far away, but I think that calculation is probably wrong. I would bet that it's a whole lot sooner than
It's
2025.
going to happen sooner, huh?
Because that period of 2010 to 2013, solar power got multiplied by over 7. That's in 4 years. That's what 63% growth means. Over 4 years, you multiply by 7.
It's doubling every year. In order to get 63% over that many years.
Per year, over 4 years.
Per year is doubling.
Yeah, and what's going to happen is, okay, that means that 2014, 15, 16, 17, that 7 is going to be multiplied by 7 again.
Yeah.
16, 17, 18, 19, 20, it's going to be multiplied by 7 again, so it'll be 50 times almost what it is now. And I have a feeling that that would put us a little beyond 20% by 2025.
I think so. They mentioned something here that you don't hear of a lot, and it's very valid.
Yeah.
The jobs created by solar panel installers.
Yes.
And these are just local guys for the most part.
That's right.
I mean, some of them are getting to be fairly
A lot
large.
of them are roofers.
Yeah, but they're your neighbors. They're little guys.
Yeah, that's right. They're your neighbors.
They're making a nice living for themselves.
That's right.
They're performing a function. This is something you don't hear much. You hear about all the jobs that the pipeline's going to create.
Well, the pipelines, I read that Keystone XL is going to create 50 permanent jobs nationwide.
The permanent jobs are nothing.
Yeah.
When they're talking about jobs at the pipeline, they're jobs that last for about 6 months or a year.
Yeah, but the solar power stuff, despite the fact that solar power panels are extremely long-lasting, the solar power jobs
enough
stay.
growth.
There's a lot of growth.
These guys are busy all the time.
And on top of everything else, you know, it's just like anything else that's connected with your roof. Somebody's going to have to go up there and look at it every couple of years, and they're going to find that some wire's been disconnected and needs to be reconnected or whatever. These jobs are not just going to disappear once.
And a lot of people don't like to walk on roofs.
A lot of people don't like to walk on roofs. Yeah, that's right. I don't like to walk on step ladders.
I'm getting that way. Yeah, I'm getting that way.
Yep. Okay. Now this next one, we're going to talk about this. Actually, you know what I'm going to do?
We've talked about it.
Let's skip the next one, go to Jerry Brown again,
yeah,
and come back to it so that we can spend the rest of the hour talking about it. So the next one that we are going to talk about is more on Jerry Brown, California Governor Jerry Brown. He announced a goal of cutting California's oil use in half. This may sound like an impossible task in a state famous for its freeways and sprawl, but many experts consider the ambitious climate and energy goals Brown spelled out in his inauguration speech difficult but doable. Cutting oil use by half in California. Impressive.
I'd like to point out the picture.
Yeah.
This particular picture is real. It's they call it state-of-the-art solar panels pick up the afternoon sun on the rooftop of DPR Construction in San Francisco. Now the next sentence is, which has moved into the first zero net energy office building in the city. Zero net energy. They're producing all the energy they consume. And they're doing it with solar.
Yes. This is, what is the city again? I just had the experience of losing my microphone, finding that it was lost.
I wonder why that happened.
I zipped up my vest and it was inside.
I was saying that
this
picture refers to a office building in San Francisco that has become the first zero net energy office building in the city.
Okay.
It's all done with those panels
that
you're seeing on the screen right now.
Zero net energy office building in San Francisco.
Yeah.
We're starting to see zero net energy buildings appear in Vermont and other parts of New England.
Well, in homes, it's not that unusual.
Yeah.
Some of the the hay bale homes and stuff like that.
Well, you know, one of the things I point out to people was that when my grandmother bought that house that we lived in New Hampshire, it was zero net energy. That was in 1927.
Good point. Good point.
All right. We should go to the next item.
Well, and we're still talking about this one, aren't we?
Oh, we are. Okay. It's zero net energy. Yes, let's keep going on.
Well, that was an aside. I mean, it's basically talking about Brown's proposals being high, and some people saying unrealistically high, and other people saying, no, it's difficult, but it's achievable.
Yes.
And
honestly,
I bet my money that they achieve it.
I think they will achieve it. And part of the reason I think they will achieve it is because we don't know what's going to happen to the price of oil. except we do know that it's going to go up.
Well, it will go up. Yeah,
And
I don't think anybody's betting against
yeah,
that.
and the expectation that we have is that the price of solar and wind and possibly other renewable sources, including geothermal, which they have in California abundantly, the prices of those are probably going to go down.
Yep.
And what that means is that at some point in the very near future, we're going to see basically all of the investment in energy in the United States being in renewable areas. And I'm expecting that will happen, and that natural gas will basically go out of any kind of development mode within a couple of years.
I think you're right.
So
It's going to be too expensive to produce.
it's going to be too expensive to produce, and we will not have any way of knowing how much it's going to cost to buy electricity from natural gas. So
Well, I
that
think
was
the
from
marketplace
SF
is going
Gate.
to take that.
Huh?
The marketplace is going to take that into consideration.
The marketplace
won't be natural gas produced
Yeah,
by
but
electricity.
again, the marketplace is, the people who are behind the marketplace are wise enough to know that the price of the fuel for solar power and wind power is not going to change.
Correct. 10 times nothing is nothing.
That's right. And the price of natural gas is going to change. The price of oil is going to change. And right now, with the price of oil low and the price of natural gas low, the only direction it can really go appreciably is up. So now we're back to the Cape Wind project, if you want to go to that.
I shall.
Okay. This came from masslive.com. The Cape Wind project planned for Nantucket Sound was dealt a significant setback as Massachusetts' two biggest utilities, Northeast Utilities and National Grid, announced that they are terminating contracts to purchase power from the wind farm because of the project's failure to meet contractual deadlines.
Well, reading that, it sounds almost like the people who are proposing the wind farm are delinquent.
That's what it sounds like.
But reading further into it, well, they might be, but they're getting sued like a son of a gun. And they're all tied up with legal battles.
That's right.
And so they can't respond because they're spending so much time and money on these legal battles.
They can't build the wind farm unless they've got funding. And they can't get the funding until they've dealt with the legal battles.
Bingo.
And the legal battles happen to have ended a couple of months ago.
Oh, it's over?
Well, basically it's over, yeah. They got those legal battles were designed to prevent them from getting their
funding.
their approval, their
Okay,
legal
their
approval.
approval, huh?
But the approval has happened now. They're
Yeah, we know they've got their
good to
approval
go.
because we've talked about that.
Now, what I find peculiar about this is that it's like, and of course this story was repeated over and over and over and over and over again in the news, and it makes me think of other stories that I've seen where journalists get a hold of something and they say, well, if they've lost their contract, that means they don't have anybody to sell this to.
Yeah.
And the problem is,
Well, it was looked upon at the time as being relatively high-priced power.
yeah, and
they gotta bring that down.
National Grid is bringing it's increasing its prices by 37%.
Yeah, you said that. You said that already today.
Yeah, because of natural gas being in short supply. So they're actually going to walk away from this contract? No.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No, they're going to renegotiate the contract, which is what they're going to do.
Yeah.
They're going to say, we'll take that contract. This is my prediction. We will take that contract, but we don't want to pay quite as much for it.
Yep. Something like that's
Something
bound
like
to
that.
happen.
Yeah.
There's a couple of side things going on here. The governor has instituted a very large development project in New Bedford
Yeah.
to build the infrastructure to take care of this wind project.
Yeah.
Okay, they're going to need ferries shuttling back and forth. They're going to need an infrastructure there, and he spent a lot of money. He spent $100 million in New Bedford. New Bedford needs it bad. New Bedford, when I lived down in Rhode Island 40 years ago, New Bedford was hurting.
Yeah.
You know, Fall River, New Bedford, they were the poorest towns in New England, I think,
Right.
at the time.
Right.
They're very close. So for that reason and that reason alone, this is more likely to happen.
Well, I
The
think
government's got $100 million invested in infrastructure to make this happen.
Yes. And there, you know, that I used to live in Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And you know, we're talking about an area in Massachusetts which has got a heavy concentration of people, where one of the big products is cranberries.
Yeah, sure, right.
You got purple fields all over the
Yeah,
place.
yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. The smallest cranberry bog I ever saw, it was professionally cared for cranberry bog. It was by the side of a road, and it was probably not 3 times the size of this desk.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was a little purple blotch by the
Some
side
little
of
bitty
this.
thing, huh?
Yeah, but the point that I'm making is, there are a lot of people down there, but Plymouth is not a wealthy community, and the areas, you know, down toward the Cape. The Cape is a lot of tourism, but the areas down toward the Cape are not necessarily areas where there's any money.
That's correct. Yeah,
And
that's correct. And Plymouth is right in the middle of it.
yeah, and on top of everything else, you know, the Pilgrim nuclear power plant, we don't know what the future of that is going to be. I don't have any reason to believe that plant's going to be going 2 years from now. This Cape Wind project is something that they have to do for the future, and it is an answer to the need for natural gas pipelines. So there's going to be a lot of people in other parts of the state who have a stake in getting that thing online. People who are paying 37% more for their electric bills have got a stake in getting Cape Wind online. So I don't think it's going to be stopped.
Well, offshore wind is doing very well for itself in Europe.
Yep.
We haven't even begun.
This is the first
we got this
project.
whole Atlantic seaboard. There's plenty of wind there.
Yeah, and
it's almost 24/7.
Yes, and the story that I've heard about wind, offshore wind in the United States, is that it happens that the amount of capacity that we could develop in offshore wind is just about equal to the amount of electricity that we use.
How strange.
But it, you know, this is it makes sense to try to develop a good deal of this. And
I got a comment on that picture, which is not it's not off Massachusetts, somewhere in England.
yeah,
But I can't conceivably, looking at that picture, seeing anything objectionable about that.
well, you know, when I think about it, seeing that, when I was a kid, you know, a lot of my time I spent living in Illinois, and a lot of my time I spent, you know, summers and whatnot in New Hampshire, and there were every time we went from one to the other, we drove through Gary, Indiana,
Okay.
and there were steel mills there.
Yeah.
And there were
exactly.
smokestacks there. And I
Yeah.
can remember 14 smokestacks right in a row, you know. And I had my opinions about smokestacks and smoke and the smell of Gary, Indiana.
Yeah.
And, you know, even the smell of Hershey, Pennsylvania, which is basically the smell of chocolate, was
Yeah.
objectionable.
Yeah, the air
And-
pollution is chocolate.
Yeah, right. And you take a picture like that one that we were just looking at, and you said, what's objectionable about that? Well, let's compare it with 14 smokestacks coming up with black smoke. Would you rather have the 14 smokestacks, or would you rather have this?
I certainly wouldn't. I don't know. I bet you there's a few people that like smokestacks.
There are people who hate wind, and they think about those wind turbine blades coming around and bashing some bird that's flying by. And more we're seeing
It isn't happening.
it isn't happening. The birds are flying around them. The birds are not stupid enough to get hit. Some of them get hit.
Some of
There's
them
no
get hit.
question. And kids walking across roads get hit by cars too.
Yeah.
But and you know,
Cats, squirrels.
we've got lots
You
and
name
lots
it.
of and the World Wildlife Fund is saying that if we don't do something, we could lose 50% of all our bird species. So anyway, There's my comment for the
Well,
day.
yeah, they're not talking about windmills. They're talking about pollution, right?
That's right. We've come to the end of our hour, and so we should probably say goodbye.
We spin and we toil, we work all day, sowing and reaping, we store goods away, so we can be dressed well on the day that we die.